What's up, everyone? Appreciate you being here. It is the Locked On NBA Free Agency 2023 special, and we've been breaking down all of the madness that has ensued. It all happened at once, it seemed. I'm Kylan Mills, Locked On Podcast Network host, co-host of the Locked On Warriors podcast, basketball analyst. Very excited to be joined now by Locked On Bulls host Hayes. Am I saying that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Hayes, awesome. Well, I'm a Chicago native, so already great connection going. But how have you been holding up today?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm surprised the Bulls actually made a move on day one of free agency. I did not expect them to make a signing day one. So hey, there you go.
Okay. Well, so here is the breakdown of that signing. Free agent guard Coby White has agreed to a 3-year, $40 million deal to stay with the Chicago Bulls, ESPN first reported. What do you make of that move?
I think it's a pretty fair move when you look at the value of it. It's 3 years, $40 million and that's with incentives. So it really breaks down to like 7% of the salary cap space. When you look at what Coby, still 23 years old, he can get to free agency again quicker with that option on the last year of the deal. So he still has a lot of upside. Coby White showed a lot of growth in everything but scoring this season, defensively, playmaking, getting to the rim. He showed growth in all those areas. And then the scoring kind of came along for him more consistently towards the end of the season. So if he's able to bring that defensive intensity that he brought throughout the whole season with that offense he showed at the last half of the season, I think it's going to be a pretty fair signing for Coby White. I don't know if it solves everything that we need, but it definitely, I think, for Coby, and the fact that the Bulls did not have a lot of true free agents capital to go out and sign other players, I think it's a pretty fair deal.
Now, the Bulls are an interesting anomaly to me because to me, this should be a team that's in full rebuild mode. They bring back Nikola Vucevic. Now you add Coby White to the mix. But where does this team stand in terms of roster construction for next year?
It's still unbalanced right now. I think that they still need some shooting. They still need to add more shooting. But I think that the rebuild that a lot of people are calling for just isn't going to happen, and they're going to try to keep rolling the dice and make little tinkering around the core here. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best decision, but that seems like the path that the front office is going. And we'll see how it ends up shaking out for them next season.
Now, in terms of Coby White's development, what excites you most about his game and his potential? He came into the Bulls as, a young guard, and we've seen him start to develop. And where do you think he's headed and maybe still has room for growth?
I think consistency on the offensive side of the ball. He showed tremendous growth the last couple of seasons defensively. And I think just the focus that he's brought defensively has been great. And that was kind of the biggest hole of his game. But now we need him to get back to being that kind of scoring punch off the bench. We need him to be a consistent threat, make kind of better decisions, limit the turnover some. But I think that Coby still has a lot of potential. Only 23 years old. We know the scoring potential he came into this league with. If he can make that, if he can consistently give the Bulls 12 to 15 off the bench, I think that he's going to definitely prove that contract to be a value contract for the team.
Okay, interesting. Now, you mentioned that some people calling for the rebuild. You don't know if it's the right choice, but it doesn't appear they're going to do so. How competitive is this team going to be realistically in your eyes in the upcoming season?
That's a great question. I see the Bulls kind of being a lot of what they were last season. Like, I think now that because they also made another guard signing in Javon Carter today as well. I think, having a point guard there for the whole season, I think that they're going to be a little bit more consistent than what they were last season. I still think they're going to be fighting for play-in or maybe a little above the play-in if everything comes together. Yeah, that's kind of what I see. I would love to be able to say that I see this team being able to avoid the play-in and being one of the top 5 to 6 teams in the East, but the East steadily improves, and the Bulls right now are kind of just making moves to make minuscule improvements where a lot of the other teams in the East are going forward. And so the Bulls are still going to have a very tough season ahead of them next year.
Now, I know you mentioned you feel like this Coby White deal was fair, but what has some of the reactions been from fans? Maybe not necessarily regarding Coby, but is there any frustration surrounding kind of this topic we've been talking about in terms of the Bulls, not necessarily completely retooling like some people want them to?
Absolutely.
What's the temperature?
I right now, I think Bulls fans are just tired. They just want to see their team compete. And it's hard, like, you're in Chicago and you understand, like, the Bulls, like, everybody wants the Bulls to compete for a title every year. We're one of the biggest markets in the league. We always are top of attendance in the league, but that's not represented by the product we put out there on the court all the time. And I think Bulls fans right now are just tired of not knowing the path and direction of this team. And, I don't know that this offseason adds any more clarity to that. And so because of it, Bulls fans are going to be in for another frustrating season, I feel.
Yeah, I guess that's my feeling as well as a Bulls fan. I live on the West Coast now, so I don't necessarily have my finger on the pulse like you do, but I know with my family, there's some frustration. Fans get tired of watching a play-in team year after year after year, and initially bringing in Nikola Vucevic, I know people that were close to me and myself, the way they constructed that roster, bringing in Ball, and there were high hopes.
Yeah.
Zach LaVine staying with the organization. Do you feel like this has been a letdown for the fans the last 3-4 years?
Absolutely, and I think there's reasons to it. Like we had the brief run of being number one in the East, then Lonzo and Zach went down. Lonzo still hasn't come back, so there are reasons for it. I think there was enough with the roster that AK initially built with Lonzo there that there was reason to be happy, the reason to be hopeful for this team. And Lonzo went down, and it's not just Lonzo. Like, and some of the decisions or lack thereof movement from the team definitely adds to that frustration. And I really do think that ultimately this Bulls team and this front office is waiting for Lonzo Ball's contract to come up so they can make their next big move. But that's not enough for us. At the city of Chicago, we deserve better. And AK says, our president of basketball operations, every time he gets in front of a microphone, says the city of Chicago deserves more. But we haven't seen that yet. And so we need to see it.
Awesome. Well, Hayes, Chicago deserves better. I love that message. We'll go out with that. A strong exclamation point here. Appreciate you joining us. Locked On Bulls host Hayes. And, be sure to follow not only Hayes, but all the hosts here at the Locked On Network, the only podcast network that is hosting shows every single day. All of our hosts breaking down the latest in the NBA the free agency madness. Trades happening too. It's the offseason. It's a fun time of year. So we will continue here in the Locked On NBA Free Agency 2023 special with much more to come.